So the first thing we see is a login delay of 5 seconds is applied. And this is using the configuration that we had in the last slide. If we had not hard set a login delay, what would be showing here? Yep, it'd be showing 1 second because that's the default if you don't specify that. No quiet mode access list, we'll hit that later. All successful login is logged. That means it's going to the log, and the failures are the same way. And you have, you can send them to the log or you can send them to a trap. Router is enabled to watch for login attacks. Well, of course it is because we've already configured our login block for command. And this is actually really nice. So let me highlight this. This is about as plain English as Cisco iOS gets with an output. Usually it's kind of cryptic, but this tells you what's configured. I mean, this is pretty clear to me. If there are more than 3 login failures within 60 seconds or less, logins will be disabled for 30 seconds. There you go. There's your login block. What it's showing here, and this is important to check because it's showing that we're presently in normal mode, and I told you that was, with the name of the slide, that this was in normal mode. So that means that right now we're processing all incoming login attempts with, of course, a 5-second delay between them. If this said quiet mode, that would mean that we were blocking. This is actually pretty interesting too because we're really close to going into that quiet mode or blocking mode, because what it's saying is within the current window, and the window is going to be what we specified up here, which is 60 seconds. So within the last minute we've had 2 failures, and our threshold is 3 failures within a minute. So 1 more of these within the time remaining, which is 7 seconds. So if somebody tried to log in unsuccessfully within the next 7 seconds, we're going to go into quiet mode and we're going to block for 30 seconds after that. And then the total login failures. This is more historical, so whereas this is just, get out of there, this is just the failed logins for the current window, which is 60 seconds here. This is the total failed logins since the router was rebooted or iOS came up last. So that's good to know too. And this is going to be the show login output when we're actually in quiet mode, when we started blocking. So same type of thing. I'm not going to go over all this bit. What you're going to be looking for here though is router presently in quiet mode, and it will remain in quiet mode for 18 seconds, denying logins from all sources. And we will look at this in detail a little bit later. When they say all sources, they mean all sources. So if you see this, then you know that there's it's blocking, and no subsequent login attempts will be processed for the next 18 seconds in this case. Okay, and this is a show login failures output, and I love this one. This is so show logins actually has another parameter you can add, and it's failures. Unfortunately, at this point, it doesn't show. It doesn't have successful logins. I guess successes would be how that would be phrased. So you're just seeing the failures, which it's good enough. This will show you, as it says, detailed information about the last 50 failures. It's pretty cool. It tells you, who was trying to access, what username they used to access your router, what IP they were sourced from, what port. So you can see here they used Telnet, which is TCP port 23, and old Chimpy Pants down here tried to SSH in on port 22. And it'll also tell you, when the login attempt occurred. And obviously I didn't have my clock set here when I was dinking around, but this command is golden. It gives you a quick and dirty to see what's going on. So when you do get that call from your user Chimpy Pants, you can say, oh yeah, I see that you failed. Why were you trying to SSH into this thing, on 5:42 on Friday, March 1st, way back in 2002. As I mentioned earlier, there are certain events that are going to create log messages in login blocks. So we'll take a look at those right now. So if you have a failed login attempt, and in this case there's with the incorrect username, this will, if you've configured login on failure log, basically, which we did, we can see it'll have a timestamp. Again, these are kind of meaningless because I didn't set the clock, but it'll tell you that it's failed. It'll tell you who the user is. It'll tell you the source, that's that IP that it's coming from. It tells you what they were using. In this case, it was Telnet. And this is cool. It tells you why. And it says, well, bad user. Well, of course, Mr. Hacker is a bad user. He's naughty. But what that means is that we don't have this user listed in our whichever username database, if it's local or on on a TACAX or whatever we're using here. We're going to use local for all this stuff, obviously. And that helps for troubleshooting, because you could say, dude, you're not even set up on here. Or it could be something that you forgot to do, like, oh crap, I was supposed to set this guy up on this box and I didn't. Well, this was not supposed to say username. This is supposed to say password. Editing in progress. So here's the same thing, same type of failure. I'm not going to go through it, but if it's password, you'll see the same thing, and it'll say bad password. So we have this username set up on our router. It's just that he tried to use a password that's not associated with this username, and that's good to know. That's usually going to be an end user screw up. And then a successful login, if you have login on success log configured as we did in our earlier example, and it'll say success, it'll say who it was, but you still got some good information there. You can see where they're coming from, and if they're telnetting, if they're coming in HTTP or SSH. There's some good information here. I would suggest that you do enable this when you enable login block. These next three login messages, these are going to be generated by default. You don't have to put in a specific configuration for these to be generated. And the first one's going to be when we go into quiet mode. And quiet mode is going to be that phase when the router has determined, based on our configuration, that there might be an attack. So it's going to lock everything down and stop accepting login requests. So it'll say, quiet mode on. And there's some other stuff here. It tells you who was the last login that started this, why he was a bad user, Chimpy Pants was bad. This bit right here, make a mental bookmark of that, because we're going to come back to that. I mean, this is an ACL that we did not configure, but it looks like this guy's in play. So now, when you're in quiet mode, when you're blocking, and an attempt is made to log in, that's actually going to get logged too. And it's saying here list, which means access list, SL _ DEF _ ACL denied TCP request from port 44223, which is just an arbitrary high port number. It's actually using port 23, or trying to access port 23 rather, and the quad zeros means it's local. So it's saying, in this case, router 2 tried to telnet in, and we denied it because we're in quiet mode. And then when you get out of quiet mode, when the all safe alarm is sounded, it'll tell you that when it's coming out of that, it'll say quiet mode off because a block period timed out at such and such time. So these three will log without you having to configure anything, unlike the login failures and login successes. How login blocking works. So we're going to go ahead and take a peek behind the iOS curtain and see exactly what the router is doing when it's invoking login blocking. So once you've configured that login block for command, the router is actually going to create an access list, and you won't be able to see it in the show running configuration. But if you do a show access list, or in this case I specified it directly with its name, it's going to have this access list that's SL _ DEF _ ACL, and we can see the logic behind this. It's saying, go ahead and deny any telnet sessions, go ahead and deny any HTTP sessions, go ahead and deny any SSH, which is TCP port 22 sessions, and then create a log message every time that you do that. Why this exists? No clue. I don't understand that, unless Cisco just didn't want to have an access list that was completely made up of deny statements. No clue. Poor ACL writing, I guess. Anyways, so when the quiet period is invoked, and again, to reiterate, that's when you've breached your criteria for what you've configured as a perceived attack with the login block for command.